Good day, and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Bridges. In each episode, I cover my experiences, both good and bad, of being a business builder, as well as my journey through the crazy world of entrepreneurship to reach my goal of earning $10 million a year. I want to welcome you to episode 108 of the podcast. We are on week 2 of August 2023, so this is a follow-up week to what we had planned last week, and as we're going through the month, giving you some heads up on where we are, what's happening, and where some of the growth is going on. Looking at my books for this week, I've added one that is going to be helpful to me as I restructure my business going down that path. Obviously, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell is still heavy on my list. It's really teaching me a lot about how I think about my time, how I'm approaching the projects and pieces of work that I'm trying to get done. And so it's an awesome book. And we're going to be covering some of the tools that Dan is sharing in that book so that you don't have to necessarily work your way through the book in order to gain something from it. I've introduced Hiring the Right Virtual Assistant this week from Melissa Smith. I've talked about it before. I am looking at substituting some of the work that I'm doing and getting that into the hands of a virtual assistant. I've been doing a lot of work this week on the structure for the business, so that's important. And of course, The Wealthy Consultant by Taylor Welch. This book continues to amaze me at its complexity and yet simplicity. A lot of the ideas that have been discussed through the program, The Wealthy Consultant, and in my program, Launch Kit, are contained in here and expounded upon, and they just make so much sense. I want to kind of cover some of those and go through that. In terms of a quote-unquote to-do list, I have more of a to-done list this week. I went through and looked at how I wanted my company structure to be built. Not from a hierarchy or an org chart point of view, but from who's going to actually answer to whom and how are they going to drive things through. So if I'm looking at integrating a particular position, the question is not going to be, how do I do it? The question is going to become, how does this person fit into the process so that I don't have to necessarily be training everyone? Right now, I'm heavily involved with the design team, and I have 2 sets of designers for different types of projects. So the process here is, it's a direct report to me. Eventually, I'm going to get rid of that and get a marketing manager in who's going to take over that aspect of things. I built a phased build out all the way through for my company structure. Everything is going to go through my communication coordinator from me, and then my marketing, my sales, and my financial managers that are going to be handling things. They're all going to answer to me, and then things are going to filter out from there. Part of one of the things that I also added recently is I've added a copywriter into the mix. I've been doing a lot of copywriting myself, and it works very well, but of course it takes a lot of time. And so I found somebody who is very easygoing. She actually contacted me, super nice, super sweet, and very smart. And so I'm going to be bringing her into the equation, seeing how she works out within this structure, and see if we can't find a place to kind of organize her so that she doesn't have to necessarily work directly with me, but she can be very autonomous. She'll be essentially outside the business, but working as a coordinator through for my clients. There's one more thing that kind of fell into my lap here recently, and you might have heard about it already. It's kind of becoming a common thing, is the concept of 75 Hard. This is a health program, fitness program of a different kind. It's self-paced, doesn't cost anything to get involved in it. All you have to do is go through and make some pieces of the puzzle actually happen. It's pretty simple. It's a 3 step process. The first part is going through in the first 30 days, and then the second part is building on that. And the idea is we're going to a 75-day program. It is not difficult, but I can see it's going to be brutal. It is going to be a lot of steps that have to be organized. Things like 45-minute workouts, one of which must be outdoors. Now, you may not know what the outdoors are like here in Indiana, but in the summer, it's about 100% humidity and in the 80s to 90s, so it can be very uncomfortable. Not to mention what it's like, especially first thing in the morning in the wintertime, when you're dealing with sub-zero temperatures. So getting outside is a real challenge. This is not just a physical program, it's a mental toughness program. And that's one of the things that comes to mind here is breaking yourself down, taking the things that you would normally do and expounding upon them so that you are producing and mentally you're not even worried about it. So I'm still evaluating it, but I do need to drop about 50 pounds to be healthy. That's going to be a big change for me. And it's not just a one-time kind of thing. This is a process that you can actually work into where it's a year-round program and you just keep redoing it. Every year you start, and if you fail on something, you fail back to the beginning. That's basically the way that it works. And you have to start your 75 days or your year once again. So that's a big challenge. Haven't decided, first of all, if I'm actually going to go through that one. But if I do, it's going to be a real life changer for me. And I don't think it's just going to be because I'm going to lose weight. It's going to put me in a position where I'm holding myself accountable. Being a business owner is all about accountability. You have to be accountable to your clients and your customers. You have to be accountable to your employees and your contractors. You have to be accountable to your vendors. Just this whole accountability matrix becomes really unique. So getting into this, I can see how it would completely make a difference. With Buy Back Your Time, I'm going to go to some of these tools and things that I've talked about. They're very simple. It's part of the streamlining process that the B3 Accelerator is designed around. The first concept is Playbooks. You might hear them as standard operating procedure, but Playbooks, it invokes a picture of like football or hockey, some other sport, where different areas of the playing surface are divided up differently, and you're going to run a series of plays that position you in that particular area to take advantage of what's going on. And so Playbooks does bring that concept of sports to mind. It's going to be all about the outcomes that come from this. I came up with 3 playbooks right now that I need to integrate in my business to get some things off of my plate. The first one was email and calendar. I don't know if you're like me, but you can't let your calendar run your day, nor can you let your email run your day. The easiest way to do that is to get an assistant, thus the hiring the right virtual assistant, to review your email, to review your calendaring. They're handling most of the replies. They're handling most of the scheduling. You yourself are not dealing with this. You're being handed essentially, here's your day. We'll go through, put it all together. These are things you need to think about and take that all and put it together into the hands of an assistant who's going to take it over for you. And I built the playbook for that. It wasn't really all that difficult because I already knew in my head what I was doing every day and I wanted to be able to do this. But there are a couple of other areas that I needed to shift responsibility from. One of those is billing and finance, and the other is payroll. These can take a lot of time. You don't do them every week, every day. Billing is usually done, like in my business, I have some projects that are progress billing and are billed every week on a Friday. I have some projects that are billed bi-weekly, just simply because it's easier to put all the pieces together. And then there's the monthly billing that occurs for all of my recurring projects and recurring pieces, breaking up your day and remembering to have bi-weekly billing on this date. It's a Monday. Okay. And then you've got Friday, you got to have your weekly billing. And then you've got the beginning of the month that's going to have billing there, and it needs to occur so many days before the end of the month. And so I'm looking to shift that off. And also, as I said, payroll. Dan gave us a good concept, and this is a good tool here, is how do you create these playbooks? You don't necessarily want to always write it out and constantly deal with this and put that over there. What he does is he's got a 4-step process on how to create these playbooks. And you can do them just one at a time, or you can take it from more of the concept of, maybe a whole department, or for a particular type of project, here's your playbook in order to go through that. The first thing he says is take a video. Whip out your phone. If you have to, put it on a like a tripod or something, so that you can actually film what's going on your computer screen of what you would normally do. Or you put it overhead, and while you're drawing something or working on it, you're explaining the process. The key here is you have to be talking about what you're doing. When you're done with that, you can kind of review it and look over it. He says to actually record whatever you're doing 3 different times, because you're going to forget something, or you're going to do something a little bit differently, and one of them is going to be a little smoother than another. The next thing that you would do to create this is you create a list of all the high-level tasks that this particular playbook needs to accomplish. It doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be crazy. You don't even have to do it. If you have an assistant, give them the video and have them create the list of high-level tasks. Have them bring it back to you. You review it. You see if there's anything that's missing. And if there's not, then off they go and they move to the second additional piece after the video. This is where you develop a time frame, what Dan calls the cadence. How quickly, how often, how well. And if it needs to be done 3 times a day, you have to specify that. And if it's once a week, you specify that, and it needs to occur on this date. And again, you can have an assistant take that, and then they bring it back to you, and you can look at it and say, yeah, that's a pretty good assessment. We're building it all together. And the last piece of this process to create your playbook is to develop a checklist. Now, again, this is a series of different items that have different focus points. One being time, one being tasks. You would never want to hop on board a plane where the pilot and co-pilot and everybody else does not go through a checklist. You would never do that. Why would you do it in your business? You have to have a way to build a checklist. And again, an assistant is a great way to do it. Potentially, you might have 2 people working together and split it up, and then you can make a comparison to see how both of them see it, find where the holes are, and piece that together. So those are great tools that Dan Martell is dropping with Buy Back Your Time, and I'm only part way through the book. That's really good. I'm about a third of the way through Hiring the Right VA by Melissa Smith, and I've been skipping around the Wealthy Consultant, just looking at what is, for that particular day, what grabs my attention. Now, this one is another tool that I want to share, and it came from some of the things that I was reading in some other areas. And it's a scheduling hack. Okay? It's a way to do scheduling that is beneficial to you. There's an example in this book of the same type of thing. What you want to do is put similar events at the same time per day, or do them back to back to back to back, all on the same day. So if you're going to do a podcast, and if it doesn't have to be exactly coordinated like this one is, this is the second week of the month and things may change a little bit. You would definitely, if it doesn't have to be that way, you could record all 4 of your podcasts in a month and be fine. Wouldn't hurt anything. In my case, this is a little bit different. We're doing this as I'm learning, but going to another podcast where we're doing some training, that would be easy to plan out, program out, and build out, and record all at, say, the beginning of the month. There's something that I learned as a musician, and I want to share this. If you are practicing at night and you do a day gig, you will feel off. You won't feel like you're in the right mindset. What's happened is the time frame of what you're doing, your brain is used to thinking of something else at that time. And your tendency is to lose a little focus, and especially if you're a busy business owner, losing your focus is the last thing you want to do. And same thing for a musician, because we're up playing, we're performing, and we have to be on. You have to be 150% of who you are in order for the audience to believe you, that this is who you are. And it's called the invisible curtain for those who don't know about it. It's right there at the edge of the stage. To get through that curtain, you've got to be a bigger person. You have to be more believable than you really want to be. And so that is something that is an advantageous part of doing this, is we're looking at things and saying, I don't feel 100%, so I'm not going to make it through that curtain. There's not really an invisible curtain here, but I'm only thinking as far as my computer, which is sitting right in front of me as I'm watching the waveform go by. If you start putting similar events at the same time every day, as you're coming up on lunch, your circadian rhythms are going to start telling you, hey, we need to start prepping to be able to digest some food. If you start going to bed at the same time every day, you'll start getting tired at roughly the same time. Time is variable. It can happen faster, it can happen slower, but as we're going through and doing what we're doing, if we can put similar things at the same time every day, they don't have to be exactly the same. You can then be more consistent in what you do. Mentally, you'll be prepared for that thing, and you'll be better about it as you go through to produce and to perform, if you will, what you're doing in your business. So that's episode 108 of the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. We've talked a little bit about some of the projects that I'm working on and some of the things I'm considering, and some of these hacks and tools and tricks and things that came from some of the pieces of the puzzle that I've been learning here. Hope it's been very helpful for you. I want to wish you the best in your health, your wealth, your business, your family, everything about you. Take care. We'll see you back here next week for another episode of the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast.